March Madness time to fill out my bracket. Let me do some research first.
Caitlin Clark is a superstar. Not a female superstar. She is a superstar.
Do I need to call you the female version of Steph Curry, or do I need to call Steph Curry the male version of Caitlin Clark? I mean, which one is it? Which one is it?
Caitlin Clark is a stone cold dog.
Who is this Caitlin Clark? The biggest name in college basketball right now is not a guy from Duke or another great guard from Kentucky. Actually, it's not a guy at all. The biggest name in college comes from Iowa, and it's a girl named Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark, Iowa star, broke the NCAA women's hoop scoring record. She's the biggest star in college basketball, men's and women's.
Here's a map of the most viewed college basketball players according to Sports Reference last season. You can see Brandon Miller, who was the most viewed player out of all the college guys. You also notice that small states seem to be loyal to their local stars. Taylor Hendricks in Utah, Imani Bates in Ohio, or Cason Wallace in Oklahoma. The Midwest, well, we have a hard time of letting go of the past, as Pistol Pete Maravich, who hasn't played in decades, still dominates. And here's the women's map. Yeah, it's all Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark has completely transformed women's basketball. Like, seriously, she somehow got Travis Scott to go to Iowa in the middle of March. The average ticket price for her game against Ohio State was $853. That is NBA playoff ticket prices. The game earned 3.39 million average viewers, the highest turnout of any women's college basketball game by any network in the last 25 years. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Caitlin Clark effect. Arenas sell out wherever Clark is playing. Not only is she filling seats, but she's also boosting TV ratings and selling merchandise off the shelves. She has essentially brought the LeBron effect to women's college basketball. There is no player right now in men's or women's college basketball that generates more excitement than Caitlin Clark. And it's not just on the court. Clark also has one of the most lucrative NIL deals, signing with big name players like Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm. She is a star that women's basketball has been waiting for years. Before Caitlin Clark, the discourse around women's basketball has always been ugly, to put it mildly.
The WNBA officials expanded to 10 teams this week, adding franchises in Detroit and Washington, D.C. But before you get too excited about the new additions to the league, remember, all of the players are still women.
Any WNBA fans here? No. Okay.
Hey, WNBA, I got an idea that'll sell some tickets, shirts, and skins.
But Caitlin Clark is changing all of that. There have been female stars before her, names like Candace Parker, Maya Moore, or Cheryl Miller. But all of them lacked something that Caitlin Clark has. And that's a wow factor.
Get the ball up in time. Clark for the win.
Wow factor is defined as the quality something has of being very impressive or surprising to people. Simply put, it's anything that makes you go, wow. Anthony Edwards' game-winning block on the Indiana Pacers was a wow moment. Trace Jackson Davis dunking on Victor Wembanyama was a wow moment. These freakishly athletic plays is what draws in casual fans into the NBA. The women's game is simply lacking this. A dunk is a very special thing to see in the WNBA because it doesn't happen often. To see a woman on a fast break barely getting over the rim and dunking it through the hoop, it sends the crowd into a frenzy. However, it does not have the same appeal as seeing an NBA player on a fast break go for a windmill or a tomahawk dunk. Shaq has even suggested lowering the rim so they can dunk just like men do.
I think if we just lower the rim so y'all can dunk like we dunk, that'll give y'all more oomph than you already have.
Now, I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon. So what's the workaround? The three-point shot.
Here comes Clark. How will she go for history?
Caitlin Clark's shooting is a wow factor. We have seen many great women shooters before, but none of them like Caitlin Clark. She has been labeled the female Stephen Curry.
Do I need to call you the female version of Steph Curry, or do I need to call Steph Curry the male version of Caitlin Clark? I mean, which one is it? Which one is it?
Her logo threes are a thing of legend now. Everybody knows that a three-pointer on a women's game is shorter than the men's game, and that's often used to discredit their actual shooting abilities. But a 30-foot shot is a 30-foot shot on every court, no matter if it's men's or women. There is no way you can discredit Clark's amazing shooting. This alone is going to push the WNBA into new heights when she finally arrives. Although I think there's something even bigger that is happening with Caitlin Clark that everyone is overlooking. Fellow college star Angel Reese had this to say about her and Caitlin Clark. Understanding they always put a good girl in a bad girl. Just understanding that's what it is. I'll take that, I'm going to be the bad girl. I think this is a fascinating quote from her. I've always been a huge fan of psychology, and I even minored in it when I was in college. As humans, we are accustomed to choosing a good guy and a bad guy. Our brains need to create this narrative to make things more intriguing. You need your good guy, the one who is friendly and easy to root for. But you need your villain, someone who is going to push your hero and challenge them to overcome things. The perfect example of this is in Dragon Ball Z, where you have Goku and Vegeta. Goku is the friendly good guy, with Vegeta the villain bad guy, which Goku needs to push him even better. And side note, rest in peace to the GOAT Akira Toriyama. In sports, you need this exact thing. The best example of this is Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Before Larry Bird and Magic Johnson entered the NBA, the 70s was a really bad time for the NBA. They were dealing with a lot of drug problems, and they were seeing a record low in attendance. In fact, there was 5 teams that were actually even considering leaving the league at this time. The NBA, needless to say, was on the verge of getting shut down.
You know, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird saved the NBA. You know, really saved the NBA from really going under, because at that particular point, it was only maybe 4 teams that were making money.
Yeah.
You know, out of at that time, I think they might have been 22 or 24 teams in the league. And these 2 guys came along and they just kind of saved the NBA.
Bird and Magic were the 2 best players in college basketball at the time. And they met in the national championship that year, which is the most viewed college basketball game of all time. After that, they would be drafted to the 2 most historic NBA franchises ever and form a bitter rivalry.
Larry Bird having a great white player in Boston. I know people don't, why are you going to bring race up? Because it was important. It was, Chris, right? You can't act like it wasn't. It was great to have a great white player playing for the Celtics.
The elephant in the room when you talk about Bird and Magic is the race. Not only were they 2 great players, Bird was a great white player and Magic was a great black player. And I know, why bring race into it? Well, you have to. You can't ignore something that has such a big impact into our society. Having that racial tension between a white and black fan bases only helped push the league, and it fueled it to save the league from near bankruptcy. Which seems like an almost unfathomable thing to think that the NBA once was that close to almost being shut down, and now the NBA is a very profitable league and is completely thriving. That's complete opposite what's happening in the WNBA. Now, the WNBA is not in the verge of shutting down or leaving anytime soon, but they've definitely had their struggles despite the NBA's consistent push to try to get the WNBA more attention. The WNBA has seen its struggle in viewership and attendance since its creation. I mean, we can just point to the difference in salaries of a WNBA player and an NBA player. The average salary of an NBA player is $9.7 million a year, while the WNBA is drastically different with just over $100,000 a year. Yeah. It's that bad. The WNBA is in desperate need of a Larry Bird and Magic Johnson narrative to help fuel their league into a more prosperous time. And lucky for them, they're 1 year away from that. Last season, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese faced off in the NCAA National Championship game. The game saw nearly 10 million viewers, the most viewed women's college basketball game ever. It was a highly competitive game between both teams, with Angel Reese and LSU taking on the title. But the only thing on everyone's mind was this moment right here.
Angel Reese knows a ring is coming.
This started an uproar on social media, with former Barstool CEO Dave Portnoy saying Reese was classless, which was odd because Clark did the same thing to Haley Van Leef the game before, but I'm not gonna go into that. Regardless, there was a huge racial war online. Reese was pictured as the thug of college basketball, and she had kind of had that image all season, while Clark was the good girl, the one that you always saw on ESPN. It took the country by storm, with everybody picking sides if they were with Reese or Caitlin Clark. It even got all the way up to the White House, as the winner of the national championship is usually invited to go to the White House for a day with the president. And the First Lady said that this year they should do it different and invite both teams, Iowa and LSU, both to the White House, which only furthered the controversy around both players. This was the white versus black narrative that women's basketball has so desperately needed. Like it or not, it has glued people's eyes to women's college basketball and is putting butts in seats. Both of these girls are going to be in the WNBA soon, and this narrative is only going to continue and build further. They now have a national spotlight on Caitlin Clark, with anything she does is front page news on ESPN. While I was literally making this video, to the right of me at this coffee shop, there was a big thing about Caitlin Clark breaking the record. We have never seen this much anticipation for a girl going to the WNBA in history. On top of Caitlin's superstardom, you also have her rivalry with Angel Reese, which is only going to help the WNBA game. Alongside Reese and Clark entering the WNBA, there's already some stars there, like Adriel Wilson, Sabrina Ionesco, and Breanna Stewart. The WNBA has officially entered their super team superstar era. Women's basketball has finally arrived. It will 100% be the most watched tournament this year over the men's tournament, which is probably the first time we have seen that in decades. Outside of Clark, the women's game is loaded with stars like Juju Watson, Paige Buchers, and Cameron Brink. But Clark will be spearheading this movement as the biggest name in college basketball. And best believe I'll be watching every single minute of the Caitlin Clark show. And if you want to keep up to date with Caitlin Clark and everything else basketball related, make sure you drop a subscribe on this channel, and I hope you have a beautiful day. God bless.